10 straight years, 1984 to 1993. It was so exciting on Selection Sunday. Looking back on that, Coach, and I know it's different, and there are times where you have fewer teams allowed in versus now, but how proud are you going to the Big Dance 10 years in a row?
I was ecstatic, really, inside, because, you know, they hadn't won a conference championship in 25 years. There were very few NCAA tournaments. And let me defend the coaches that preceded me. They really didn't have the facilities. They really didn't have an athletic director that gave his support to me like Carl Maddox did. And I want to tell you a story about him, the AD. So it was, you know, and we didn't even have our own band. Charlie Roberts started up the Court Jesters. I just think that, you know, it's easy to say hard work pays off, but it really does pay off, and positive thinking. And there's going to be some setbacks. But give you an example. My wife and I had talked over. The rumors were that Mr. Maddox was getting to that age that they wanted to move him out of that office. I don't know. He was in his 70s. I'm not sure how old, but so I said to my wife, "Man, I'd hate to be the cause of that." Mr. Maddox hired a no-name coach, and now people are after him to get rid of him. I said, I can't. What do you think? I said, I think I'm going to go see him and tell him, heck, if you agree, we can just go back to North Dakota, be teachers there or whatever. I just don't want Mr. Maddox to ever lose his job because of me. She said, I agree with you. She said, that would be awful. So I call. This is Maddox answers. I asked if Carl's there. She said he was. I asked if I'd come and see him. By that time, she'd set up some lemonade in the backyard. It was a real nice spring day, and I said, Mr. Maddox, I said, I've talked to my wife, and I said, you gave me my chance of a lifetime. A no-name guy with no connections gave me a chance to come to this great university, this great state, to be the head coach. And I said, I've now had 3 losing seasons in a row, and I said, I'm ready to retire. I just wouldn't want you to lose your job over me. Dale Brown. And he put down his tea rather hard. He said, stop that nonsense. As long as that team is as disciplined and they play as hard as they do, he said, I've got confidence you're going to be able to get players and you're going to be able to turn this into a powerhouse. Don't you even think of that, because as long as I'm the AD, you will be the head coach. Do you realize what a freedom that gave me as a coach and would give any coach? So thanks to Carl Maddox. He's got the Carl Maddox Fieldhouse named after him, and I certainly wish he was here for this.
1981, greatest LSU all-time team, 26 in a row, 17-1 in the SEC. First time you made the Final Four. What was it like? And you talked about a white man's Muhammad Ali. I'll tell you what, for a white man, you had some incredible leaping ability as you ran off the Superdome. I don't know what your vertical was that day, but it had to be close to 40 inches, Dale.
Well, I just wear my emotions on my sleeve, and I just felt so. I felt, obviously, you got to be personally happy as a coach, because you never know when you're going to get fired and success, but I never thought about that after Mr. Maddox gave me the leeway. I was just so happy for those guys, what they did and what they believed in. And this may sound bizarre to you, but I didn't dream this happening. You don't wish it happened. You will it. You work hard enough. You get young men that believe in the system, and truly things happen. And then something else in my young coaching career I found out. I was coaching 4 years in college. I was coaching the junior varsity at the high school I graduated from nothing. And I found out as a young coach, and this is true in any level, players don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Now, you can't be some phony guy, phony evangelist waving your words around. You've got to be real in doing it. And today, the 160 players I had, God bless them, 10 of them are deceased now. But I've been in touch with all but 30 of them right now, and I'm trying to track them down. Some of them, about 10, 12 of them are overseas. But it was a pleasure. I love Louisiana. I love LSU. I love Baton Rouge. And I love Carl Maddox, and he gave me a chance, and you never would guess who gave my name to him. Years later, I found out. Joe Dean was a great player here in AD and was probably the most prominent guy with Converse Rubber Company, being a vice president. Mr. Maddox called Joe Dean, had him come to the office, and he said, what I want you to, he said, I'm not a basketball guy, I'm a football guy. Name me the top 5 assistants in this country and the top 5 head coaches. I want to interview them. Well, Joe Dean, I'd met him and been with him a couple times at clinics and would see him at a Final Four. He recommended me to Mr. Maddox. So, and at that time also, they didn't spend all that money for search committees. They had 3 local people, an oilman from Lafayette, a professor from LSU, and Ned Clark, a banker and a former LSU player.
Yeah.
They were the ones that made the decision.
Dale, this is Joe Dean up in heaven, and I always envisioned string music in Baton Rouge, LA.
Oh, yeah. He brought it to life.
Coach, got to ask you this one, and it's kind of an interesting one. You grew up without a father.
Yes, sir.
But yet you were a father figure to so many people, players, and confidants and kids. How did that evolve? And this is kind of the first time I've ever asked you about your mom and what she instilled in you to make you the person that you are today.
My mother, this is not a sob story, but 2 days before I was born, my biological father abandoned my mother and I. I had 2 older sisters, 12 and 11 years older than me, and obviously he abandoned them too, but they'd grown up, got jobs, and, you know. My mother came off a farm, had an 8th grade education, couldn't get a job, had to become a maid for 50 cents an hour, had to go on welfare for $42.50, but not one time did I ever hear her complain. I think the 2 greatest lessons that I learned were from my mother. Number 1, 2 times in the middle of the winter. Now, when I'm talking, this cold we had here with this ice storm a year ago, that's nothing. 35, 40 below zero was nothing. To see her 2 times have the brown paper sacks and take out the bread, the beans, the potatoes, and whatever, and she'd always cross them off. 2 times I saw her go in the closet and get her coat. I said, where are you going, Mama? She didn't tell me where she was going. She came over, and she had a quarter one time in her hand, and she said, I'm taking this quarter back to the Red Owl store. They gave me a quarter too much. Another time, she had 40 cents she took back to the store. So what my mother did, she didn't tell me, she didn't make a big deal of it. Everything she did was by example. Edgar Guest, which is my favorite poet, says, I'd rather see a lesson than to hear one any day. I'd rather you walk with me than to merely show the way. The eye's a better teacher and more willing than the ear. And the counsel you are giving may be very fine and true, but I'd rather get my examples by observing what you do. The second thing that I watched my mother, she'd have to go babysit. I'm 10 years old. We had no TV. We had no radio. I'd wait up, I'd read and what have you. Well, this one night she comes home from babysitting. I'm waiting up for her, anxious as heck. She asks me to sit in this chair we have. To the best of my knowledge, I think that was the only one we had, and she had a little footstool she pulled up. And she said, son, this is the greatest lesson I think I learned from her, outside of that honesty. She said, I'm embarrassed to tell you this, but I've got to tell you something. I thought, my mother's embarrassed? She didn't drink, she didn't smoke, she didn't take drugs, she never dated, she never talked about her husband that left her, my biological father. I thought, what can she be embarrassed about? She said, when I go babysit for these big shots, she said, I'm so self-conscious, son, that they'll smell the mothballs in my clothes, because we got all our clothes basically at the rummage sale. And she said, or they're going to ask me, oh, what's your husband do? And I don't want to say he abandoned us, or what college did you go to? So she said, son, don't do what I did. I'm embarrassed by this. She said, I go look up big words in the dictionary, and I write them on a 3x5 card, and then memorize them. And I have that 3x5 card in my hand. So she said, then when we get in the car, I try to control the conversation by trying to impress them with my vocabulary. And son, she said, don't do what I did. She said, for this reason. She said, son, if you spend too much time polishing your image, you'll eventually tarnish your character and be an unhappy man. You do what you know is right. And I learned a lot from that woman. Any good that I have in this body is certainly because of a great mother I had.
We thank you for that answer. All right, Coach, I got to go quick because people want these. They love you. Interesting, kind of off the beaten path, but PFM wants to know about defense and who were the better defenders that you had through your years, and what do you think about the LSU defense they're playing right now? I know Bernard Woodside was known for defense, and obviously Shaq. Everybody knows about the block shots. And, oh, by the way, I don't know if Coach Brown remembered this, but we were in Boise, Idaho, and Shaq was a junior and went 12 for 12 at the line of scrimmage. And I think I mentioned to you, I said, Coach, goodness gracious, I don't know where that came from. But if you could, just talk about defense and obviously how proud you are, Shaquille. And I know you had to think that was a tough loss to stomach, but there was
let's talk
did
about
you
the
ever
LSU
have any
defense,
idea Shaquille O'Neal would turn out this way?
I'll answer all three questions kind of in reverse. I think this might be the best defensive team Will Waite's had in his years at LSU. They play hard. They play intelligent. They're very good. There's some no-name guys that, like you mentioned Oliver Brown, Bernard Woodside, probably as good a defensive player as I've had that had the quick hands. I gave him the name the Thief. Was Ethan Martin.
Ethan Martin, yeah.
He could get on a guy. Now, remember, he had no scholarships coming out of high school. When we gave him a scholarship, then Southern, I think, came in and gave him a scholarship later. So all players have different things they contribute. The situation defensively, I think what got us through some big games was the freak defense, which it's not as complicated as it sounds, but not one individual being a great defensive player, obviously you're going to win games. You got to have guys diving on the floor for a loose ball. Defense is more than just guarding your man. It's help defense. It's rebounding. It's blocking shots. I can't say who the best was, but Ethan Martin.
Well, I'll tell you what, Coach, we talked about all the years, and you mentioned the story with the media. I remember one year, and you did a great job, and of course Nick Saban's done a great job of this, of using the media to talk to the mamas and daddies and your players and the administration and everybody. But one time we get assembled for a press conference, and Sam King had written an article, and I know he's still a dear friend and was a great friend to you all those years, and you just ripped that article right to shreds and used it as motivation. Talk a little bit about trying to talk through the media to motivate and get your message out there.
Sam King was one of the best in the business.
He really was.
There's three types of people. There's those that kind of kiss up to the head coach. There's those that are cynics, and then there's those that are critics. He was a critic of the game. He knew it. He played it. He knew what he was doing. And in one statement he was saying, it was Vanderbilt we played, and Vanderbilt was better than us, and they were good, and they beat us. And in that article, he said something about LSU's more of a freelance and not as disciplined offensively as Vanderbilt. So I cut it out, and I put it up on the bulletin board, and I put it on their lockers, and I put it where they had it when they'd go in the shower. I put it when they put their equipment on, and I said, someday, I said, I'm keeping that article in my wallet. And I said, Mr. King, we're going to have him come in the dressing room while I burn it in front of him. I loved Sam King because he was an excellent writer, and he was a critic. He wasn't trying to impress anybody but write the truth. And what he wrote was the truth in it. Lo and behold, who do we play? And I think they're nationally ranked about third. We play Vanderbilt again and beat them. So I asked Sam to come in the locker, and for good fun, we burned the article. But he was always fair.
All right, Coach, a couple more, and then we'll let you go. We always enjoy your time. You've been so gracious to us. And people want to know about trips. You guys went up the Mississippi River, King and Jim Talbot, and you're looking for this and looking for that. Just give us a little summary of all the trips. And, of course, somebody says, ask Dale what his opinion was on the Boca Mukaverovich when he showed up 6 inches shorter than we originally thought.
Well, let's start with being able to dream. There are some people that aren't going to have mothers. There's some people that ain't going to have fathers. There's some people that are going to be poor. There's going to be some people that are going to have all kinds of hardships. However, you have to be able, wishing and willing. The French call idée fixée. Whatever you fix in your mind will happen if you work on it. Everybody wishes they were richer. Everybody wishes they could get a better radio station. They wishes they could be a better coach. Wishing, everybody, but willing it. I think that the fact that willing something, when you really, really sit down and make up your mind, the action will show up. And it's so easy. We used to, nowadays, it's so easy. In the past, it didn't used to be this way. In the past, we used to accentuate the positive and diminish the negative. Now, we accentuate the negative and diminish the positive. So you just have to always be ready and understand there's going to be defeat, but if you do not give up. I sent a thing to Shaquille when he got cut off the high school team, a letter. And in that letter, at the end of it, I said, I know how you feel. I said, we all go through tough times. But I said, if you always try to do your very best, and only you will know that, and you never give up under any conditions, sooner or later, God will take care of everything else. And I really, really believe that. And that doesn't mean good's always going to come in your personal life. I'm still a work in progress. I'm going to be 87 in Halloween. But my model was John Wooden. He was the perfect example of one of the greatest coach of all time, and just a wonderful, wonderful human being, and a beacon light to all of us.
I asked you this last time, Coach, and it kind of took you back. And since we don't have the tape, I'm going to ask you again, because it's really something. 448 games, and yet nobody really ever gave you credit for the X's and O's. They called you a motivator and other things. What do you say to those people that, and do you resent the fact that they don't respect your coaching ability versus what they said as the master motivator? How do you handle that kind of stuff? And how often did you use what other people said to get your guys to believe they could accomplish everything you told them?
That's their right to feel how they feel. It's how you feel inside, what you know inside. I coached for 44 years, so that's just part of it. And if you're coaching for fanfare or news headlines, I coached because I really wanted to. I know what sports gave me. It gave me the first good self-image of myself. 2, it taught me discipline. It taught me teamwork. It gave me an education. I wanted to do that with our players. 85% of the players that stayed at LSU got a college degree. And I remember, I close on this. John Wooden, here's my answer to your question. Do you know who Sam Gilbert is?
That is the big guy out west.
Correct. Well, Sam Gilbert had called me. I'd met him a couple of times and said he was going to recommend me to be head coach at UCLA. And I said, no, don't do it, because I'm not leaving LSU. But Sam told me a story. So for all of the people that are second guessed, that's just part of the business. I mean, Ed Ogeron was a hero. Now he's fired. Jerry Stovall was a hero. Now he's fired. I can go
Jerry
down.
DiNardo.
DiNardo was fired. I mean, Curly Holman fired. Go down the line. He told me a story that stuck with me. I did not do it for the fans. I did not do it for glorification. I really wanted to help young people. I knew when I did a good or bad job or fair. But Sam Gilbert told me that John Wooden had been at UCLA for 13 years and had never been to a Final Four. And we'll close the show on this. And he said, so he got a call from the two biggest boosters and himself, building children's home, hospitals, millions of dollars to UCLA, and they wanted to meet in Westwood for breakfast. So the one guy that initiated said, listen, he says, Coach Wooden, he says he'd been here 13 years and he hadn't won a national championship. He said, we got to get someone that can come in here and win. So how about tomorrow? I'll set it up with the president of the school. We'll go see the president and tell him we want to have John Wooden replaced. They all three agreed on it. Sam Gilbert told me on his way home, he kind of got a bad feeling. Now, there weren't cell phones at that time, so he had to wait till he got home, and he called the president of UCLA. And he said, I told him, listen, he said, I just left a meeting at this little restaurant in Westwood. He said, these guys were in it, and they're coming to see. I'm not coming tomorrow. But if you fire John Wooden, he said, I'm against it. If you fire John Wooden for 13 years being here and not being in a Final Four or not winning a championship, he said, I will withdraw all the money I promised, my endowed scholarships. I'll be UCLA's worst enemy. Well, they kept him. He stayed 12 more years. He won 10 national championships. So what are you in coaching for? I wanted to help young men get a degree, be able to stand on their own feet, because I know what it's like to be poor, and most of the players you get, the larger percentage do come from poor families and one parent, and then do as good as you can do, and then you can be comfortable. Right now, it's a little bit different. Win, 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 win. I can take. Let's take one of the greatest football coaches in the history of all sport, football, Nick Saban. I was at a Final Four, and there was some guys standing over there, Michigan State gear, and Michigan State was in the basketball tournament. And the one guy came up to me and said, you're the LSU coach, aren't you? And I said, yeah. He said, oh, boy, he said, we're sure glad we got rid of that damn Nick Saban. And he's going to LSU, he said. Boy, oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy. You guys made a major mistake. Now, I hadn't even heard of Nick Saban at the time, to be honest with you. So this just happens. If you're going to have your ego or your vanity involved, there's an old saying, and I like to close on this. When you get what you want, buddy, the struggle for life, and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself. See what that man has to say. For it isn't your mother, father, sweetheart, or boss whose judgment upon you must pass. The person who counts most in your life is the one staring back from the glass. Oh, yeah, buddy, you may get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartache and tears if you've cheated the man in the glass. I made many mistakes in coaching, but I never tried to cheat the man in the glass. I always wanted to be honest to the players. I wanted to build as honorable a program as I could. And this sounds pretty phony in a way, or evangelistic. I'd look at players and say to myself, they were talented. Do I want them babysitting our daughter? Now, if you had to be a canonized saint to get this job, I wouldn't have gotten the job. But you look back, we not only had some pretty doggone good players, we had some pretty doggone good kids. And I'm glad for them that they're going to be there on
Coach,
January 4th.
I'll thank you for those that have been impacted, and obviously you have been so many things to so many people. Well-deserved. Obviously, it's a big night on Tuesday, and that last question we got in from Paco, why can't they fill the Pete Maravich Assembly Center like they did in your heyday? I'm going to go ahead and call it, Coach. I think there's a chance for a sellout. You mentioned the 75-40 victory over there. You talk about beating Kentucky. You talk about wearing brown. And, oh, by the way, folks, we're in the car yesterday talking. I'm dropping off some food. And these two kids, 11 and 7, got a chance to listen to Dale Brown. And I have to tell you, Dale, they were incredibly impressed with how classy you were. And Preston said, oh, my God, they're naming the court after him Tuesday night. Congratulations for everybody that hasn't had a chance to tell you how much you've meant to them, the well-deserved honor, and look at a place that was so heavy in football you have to believe in miracles, what's happened in your life, but to tackle that challenge of coming into this football crazy, and now you look up with Will Wade and Kim Mulkey in that building and now that court Tuesday night. Coach, it's time to take a bow, and certainly we appreciate you for all the years we've had such a great relationship.
Buddy, thank you. I thank all the wonderful fans and friends, and I thank Louisiana people taking a carpetbagger from North Dakota, and we love Louisiana, and it was a fun run, and it's going to be a fun run right up until the end.
So I want to give you one more chance. Here we go, folks. We leave with Dale Brown and some chill bumps. Enjoy your afternoon. Dale, love you, appreciate you. We'll be talking soon. Here's Tigers to the Top as we wrap it up on the Tuesday. Thank you, Dale.
Buddy. Blessings to you.
Dale Brown and the Tigers win coast every team. With talent, heart, and hustle, they've captured all our dreams. The purple and gold will go the Philly way. LSU will be the champs of the NCAA. Tigers to the top now.